If I Were the Devil, by D.A. Ellis. In memory of Paul Harvey. If I were the first fallen named Lucifer, cast down and given dominion over all the kingdoms. If I were the Prince of Darkness, expelled from heaven, left upon the dust of earth as a propagator of evils that may tempt and test God's children into sin and immorality. If I were he, I would encompass every avarice and vice that could beset the Creator's vision. If I were the devil, I would own 90% of global wealth, whilst the remaining 10% squirmed within the shadow of my influential scepter until they too came to be turned, and everything became as night. Like disease, I would inflict the souls of those most powerful in seats of government. Until democracy was but an insidious illusion, politics but a means to further corporate agenda, and legislation merely a more efficient means of attaining evil objectives. Nations would put nations to the sword for profit. Innocent men, women and children would be condemned to slaughter in the name of greed. I would seek to block out every single aperture of light and truth. Naturally, I would want darkness to engulf the world. Like a net, I would cast a carefully crafted doubt onto the multitudes as to the very existence of God, until the day when science could not only explain away the Creator myth, but have them so convinced that belief in such a being was not merely ridiculously credulous but harmful to the intellectual growth of the being. Such would be the faith in the world scientific view. You would eventually come to despise all religious ideology. The atheist would ardently defend the belief that we are all simply the result of random chance circumstance, that there is no intelligent design behind the content of the universe. I would have them replace theology with theoretical science, until God was but a memory of an archaic and laughably tribal mentality, severing all connections to the divine and all things infinite. If I were the devil, the human being would be afforded little to no time whatsoever to commit to intelligent, imaginative and creative thought. Their minds would be constantly constricted by the fear of security, the worry of money, and the relentless labor that they must be subjected to on a daily basis. I would enter into government and enforce a minimum retirement age, to ensure that all the best years of the being were fully monopolized, to the point where they would be reduced to mere production line fodder, replaceable, consumed by the relentless, soulless regimen of work, little rest and more work. I would promote portable handheld devices and limitless worldwide connectivity that further captivated the attention of both the young and old, that stimulated the most negative impulses with folly, pornography, violence, depravity, and have them not just desiring the technology but begging for it, until the scope of the precious allotment of leisure was reduced to the ridiculousness contained upon a 3-inch screen. With cunning, I deify movie stars and celebrity personalities suppressing the hero, conditioning you to think that happiness can only be purchased, that contentment and purpose could be satisfied through the pursuits of acquisition, and that what we observed on flat-screen television was the standard by which to live one's life. I would have you image-conscious to the point where you simply could not smile confidently, without being draped in the height of fashion, sporting perfect dazzling white teeth, or take to the beach comfortably without a chiseled airbrushed magazine body. I would see to it that media facilitated the discontent of the vulnerable, by pushing false visual perfection onto an already fragile and debilitated public, having them not just desiring a handsome, pretty, toned and slim appearance, but begging for it. Such will be the shallowness of their own self-worth and the power of self-gratification. If I were, I would promote and perpetuate the idiotic superficial being as someone to be idolized, parading them all over the TVs and radios, until you believed that superficial and ignorant was the thing to be. I'd introduce classism, creating social disparity, along with the ideology that vast sums of money create superiority, while those less fortunate are inferior beings not worthy of existence but deserving of only ridicule and further neglect. Sports that celebrate gratuitous violence would captivate the public. The youth would believe that good is bad and vice versa. I would have them obsessed with illusion and negative pop cultures, until with the tools of my own wretchedness, they began to sculpt the very content of their impressionable character. They would view endeavors of self-exploration as unnecessary and find little use for the intelligent utility of mind other than using it to populate the bar of an online search engine. I would drive wedges between families by leading the being to believe that they are individual, that they are not interconnected to every intricate mechanism of creation, that they are each unique. I would send 4-year-old children in uniform off to full-time education, thus setting in motion the premature growth away from the moral compass of the truly loving, guiding parent, turning brother against brother, daughter against mother. I would destroy families whilst they're consumed by acquisition, work and play, as well as the intoxicating avarices of the hive-like industrial society. The disparity and disharmony of the family would be an image of society in embryo. Vulgar sexual acts and imagery would no longer be socially clandestine or taboo, but so common, so accessible, it would eventually cause confusion about individual sexuality, to the point that they would question the very gender of their own biological birth, perpetuating cultural collapse through the collective fragmentation of personal identity. If I were the devil, I would paint an atmosphere in which abortion would be viewed as socially acceptable, agreeable to the point where it was advisable, opposed to quality information and better educational systems, neglecting the emotional root of the child until decisions required little thought as consequences were no longer morally significant. I would sell drugs and alcohol from every street corner I could. To every patron of society, I would have you intoxicated on weekends and sedated on weekdays, and when you were sick by virtue of your own indulgences, I would have drugs for that too. Next to that alcohol store, I would have a gun store so you could kill yourselves quicker. And through sensationalized news headlines, I would keep you in states of perpetual fear about the world around you, thus facilitating a false dependency on the dominating authority which only seeks to ultimately enslave you and use you, of course, for my own bidding. If I were the devil, no fruit would be picked but sold, not a single fish caught without a price, and not a single vegetable could be cultivated by one's own hand, for fear of imprisonment. Prescription drugs and vital hospital treatments would cost thousands, and you would work a lifetime to pay the bill, whilst natural biological herbs and fungi with proven health benefits, both physically as well as psychologically, are suppressed and deemed illegal by the state, punishable again by prolonged terms of imprisonment. I would have high judges protect the beasts that would mistreat children, awarding them with the highest accolades available to society as a sick subterfuge, but condemned those that would take forcefully from my 90%. If I were the devil, the notion of life after death would be an ancient mythological fairy tale. You would believe in science unequivocally. You would believe that the concept of the solar spirit is but the intricate workings of the vain and self-important aspirations of the mechanical brain, and that upon death, it simply ceases to be, returning to the earth from which it originally sprang. Is will everyone you have ever loved, that you are not important or purposeful. You do not go on. You are but the result of random evolution. Organic biological matter that begins a slow state of decomposition after birth that continues throughout one's life into death, destined only for inevitable oblivion, never to return. If I were the devil, Easter and Christmas would be reduced to mass manic consumerism. Not spending time, but spending money that you have worked all year for, in most cases sacrificed your very health to accumulate. In unison, you would stockpile alcohol, food and arbitrary trinkets in preparation for the season, where you could eat and drink yourselves into an undignified stupor morning and night. I would reduce the meaning of Easter and Christmas to something that could be purchased from a supermarket's shelf. I would extract the spirit from all things of righteousness and morality. I would not be satisfied until I had made the earth as ash, exhausted every natural resource, emptied the oceans of its life, and stripped every forest and jungle bare until all that remained was desolation, I would poison the air you breathe. Poison your food and poison your consciousness with petty entertainments designed to distract you from reality, making you docile and single-minded, incapable of original visionary thought. The rich will get richer, prosper and flourish, whilst the poor became poorer, depressed and desperate, crumbling at the feet of tyranny, until all that remained were the elitist cabal, which are and always have been my dedicated servants, looming over a totalitarian state from the heights of the lofty corporate towers, built by those entombed within the foundations. If I were he, patriarchy would be reviled by the misplaced energy and animosity of radical feminists. Social justice commentary would be idiotic and ill-informed. Freedom of speech would be suppressed by political correctness. Religion would inspire terror. Intelligence would be redundant amongst lower communities. The being would begin a slow regression of innate capabilities until civilization was trite, homogeneous, backwards pulp garbage, deserving only of complete annihilation. If I were the Lord of Misery, I would kill indiscriminately. All of this because I am a deceiver of mankind. If I were the devil, the smart thing to do would be to leave you exactly as you are, sit back, and enjoy the warmth of the inevitable fire.